Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning. It's a live edition of PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. It is a Thursday, and I want to thank David Steele for our introduction. We're going to have Brent Beaird here in just a second. Then we're going to have Mike Ridaught kind of close out high school football. Let's go to the Titan Tomorrow hotline, courtesy of Duffield Home Improvements, and we are joined by our college football analyst and Heisman Trophy voter, Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How are you?
Well, I'm doing fine, like everyone else, trying to keep up with everything that's going on in December, which is not easy, is it, Shane? So, but was excited about the SEC schedule release. We've got the Heisman Trophy vote behind us, and enjoy that over the weekend. And we are on the verge, beginning on Friday night, of bowl games. We've got a slew of them on Saturday, and we will have bowl games Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So that's one of the great things about this time of year is when you have bowl games that you can look forward to seeing almost every night.
Yeah, for sure. Also, I failed to mention Gators play basketball tonight in Lakeland against the East Carolina Pirates. I think that game is on SEC Network. Susan says she's going to the game tonight. Go Gators, go Dreadnoughts, the state champs, the Lakeland Dreadnoughts. So, Brent, I don't even know where to start. Let's first of all, I got this question for you because the FCS, which is, I think it used to be called Division II. I don't even know what it used to be called. Anyway, the step down below the big boys. They're in their semifinals. I think that's this weekend. You got South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits powerhouse.
Right. Yes.
They're playing the University of Albany. And then you got North Dakota State, who's always been a powerhouse, playing like Montana. My question to you is, it's so interesting to me how those teams out west are always in the mix and win the national title. You know, I know there's been a handful over on our side of the country, but you would think, think about
really.
the Southern Conference where like Furman and Samford and all those great programs, you would think those teams would win more or be in the hunt more. I mean, am I crazy to think that?
No, and the funny thing is, in your powerhouses in Division I football, obviously, or I'm not excluding Ohio State and Michigan, teams like that, but a lot of your power now is in the Southeast in Division I. But to your point, in the lower division, I think that's a really good point. It is more in the West, and as you said, South Dakota State is a really good football team. People ought to take a little bit of time and watch some of these teams. And the South Dakota State team is on Friday night on ESPN at 7 p.m. So that's a game you can see. They've also got the Division III game in the Stag Bowl at Salem, Virginia, on ESPNU. So good point. And it is interesting how that's worked out, isn't it? Where one division is west and the other division and the main one is in the southeast.
Yeah, it's really weird. And in South Dakota State, they're one of the few that play outside. I think Montana plays outside too, but North Dakota State has a dome. Brent, the Heisman Trophy was awarded to Jaden Daniels, which I was very pleased because he deserved it.
Yes.
I know you posted on social media your ballot. Do you want to tell our listeners in case they missed that?
Yeah, Jaden Daniels was my number one, too. I mean, just a guy that wonder if LSU had a defense, how good they could have been. But he was just amazing. Threw for 3,800 yards, ran for 1,100 yards, scored a total of 50 touchdowns. 50 touchdowns in a season. Most guys don't have 50 touchdowns, do they, Shane, in a career? But when you do it in a season, it's just staggering. Michael Penix was my number 2 at that point. So Jalen Milroe was my number 3. He really went up the ranks during that time, too. By the way, Jordan Travis was 5. Milroe was 6. Ollie Gordon in Oklahoma State was 7. Cody Schrader was 8. Blake Corum was 9. And J.J. McCarthy was 10, the 2 Michigan prospects. Just to let folks know how that came out. They may have quit watching after the top 4. So that's a pretty good group of players.
Yeah, the transfer portal is still what's all out there. If people missed it, Dylan Gabriel is going from Oklahoma to Oregon. Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina to NC State. Tyler Van Dyke from Miami to Wisconsin. MJ Morris, which is an interesting story, who was at NC State, is going to Maryland. And then obviously Notre Dame, who rents quarterbacks year in and year out, is getting Riley Leonard from Duke. And then Brock Vandergriff, which he's one of Kirby's 5-star quarterback. You know, Kirby, I don't think has ever played a 5-star quarterback. He signed multiple ones, but none of them ever play. Carson Beck, I think, was a 4-star. But so Brock Vandergriff is going to Kentucky. I did see where people may have missed this, but obviously Texas is in the Final Four. Their backup quarterback, I think his name is Malik Murphy, entered the portal yesterday, which means he cannot participate with them anymore. So now Arch Manning, I guess, will be the backup in that game. But it's kind of the portal, the timing is rough for these kids because if, you know, use Texas, use Michigan, these teams in the Final Four, they have a bunch of players that probably want to go in the portal. And if they do, they don't get to participate the rest of the year. Do you think it's a kind of bad timing? Should they wait and open up the portal once the entire college football season is over?
Listen, I think that's an astute point. The portal opens on December the 4th. It closes on January the 3rd. So obviously you have got the national championships as far as the semifinals are January the 1st, where the portal closes January the 3rd. I mean, these kids probably know what they want to do, but that doesn't give you much time if you don't, frankly. But look, there are 2 things they need to move. One is they need to move National Signing Day, which is next Wednesday. It's the early one. And frankly, it's the main one now. They need to move that out of December. And to your point, Shane, they really do need to move the transfer portal too. I mean, could you look? How much of a difference would it make if you had the transfer portal like the second week of January and open it then? What would you know? I don't know how the coaches would take that. I know they're trying to get their roster managed, but boy, it just seems like that would make things a little easier.
Yeah, it would be like right now in the National Football League, free agency starting today. With the season not being over.
That's insane, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. We got a couple of texts here on the Titan and Mark text line. Let me get to these before we move forward. This one says, Michael from Tennessee says, after the Gator schedule was released, I thought it was brutal. I think I'm pretty realistic and a reasonable person. I think maybe 3 to 4 wins in 2024. It's going to be a long season. Go Gators. Look, here's all I can tell people. On paper, it looks very difficult, but you know, people are losing players. They're adding players. We don't know. Just because these teams may have had success last year doesn't mean they're going to have success this year. So here's what I would say to fans. Embrace it. It's a fun-looking schedule to me. Everybody's always bitched about cupcakes. Well, you ain't got any cupcakes. So enjoy it. I mean, that's all you can do.
But look, when you look at this schedule, and knowing what these teams are losing or might lose, I mean, they're capable of beating Miami and Samford, at Mississippi State, UCF, Kentucky, and it gets pretty rough after that, and they'll probably have to beat some teams that they may not be expected to beat. But it's not like they're going 0-12. I mean, I look at that schedule right now and tell you some of the games they can. I don't know if they'll be favored, but at least they could win. So, good point. Folks don't need to give up right now.
No, Tommy in Gainesville says a great schedule upcoming. Only 3 games outside the state of Florida. Hope Billy embraces this and our football team goes and wins 9 games. This is from the 941. Was wondering what we would start acquiring portal players. You say everyone else wants players too, but teams are running laps around our 0 players acquired. South Carolina has 3. Couple we had visit should have been layups. Again, like I tell everybody, you have to take off your orange and blue glasses and put yourself in a player's position. We don't know what a player who visits or player who does not visit, what he is thinking, what he is being offered. Just because, let's use Rocket Sanders, for example. Supposedly Rocket Sanders from Arkansas is going to South Carolina.
Yes.
Okay. Everybody sees that and goes, why didn't the Florida Gators go after him? Okay. Maybe we made an offer. Maybe South Carolina gave him more money. Maybe Hootie and Blowfish gave him a lot of money. Or maybe we didn't even want him. We don't know. That is my point to the whole thing. Just sit back and, like I said, there's nothing any of us can do about it. So try not to stress about it. Chris on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, says, Brent, kids have to enroll for school the second week in January. It'd be too late. I guess he's talking about changing the portal, which that is a good point. I didn't think about that.
It is.
But they got to do something, because to have free agency in the middle of a season is just ridiculous. And then,
I agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
941 Low Life says it's just like youth league teams now. A different roster every year is what we have. That's true. J&J Trucking asks, how many teams are we playing who have their QB returning? Okay, let me pull up our schedule real quick, and Brent and I can go through that. Let's see. Well, I thought I had it. I don't have the schedule in front of me.
Yeah, I've got it here. Miami,
no.
Samford,
we don't know. I don't know who their quarterback is.
Now Connor Weigman is supposed to come back for A&M. Now the Mississippi State situation.
They have a new quarterback, Blake Sharpen from Baylor.
Yes, correct. Yeah, UCF.
I don't know. They'll have a new quarterback.
Yeah, and Tennessee, Nico, the 5-star probably is Nico Lamaliva will be your quarterback. Kentucky will have a new quarterback.
Yeah.
Georgia. Now, Carson Beck is yet to decide. So that we don't know. Quinn Ewers is on November the 9th. He'll be back for Texas. Obviously, with LSU, we know Jane Daniels won't be back. Jackson Dart will be back for Ole Miss. And then right now for FSU, we don't know who FSU is going to be. Now, my understanding is DJ Uiagalelei is supposed to be in this weekend for Florida State. So now Uiagalelei got a little bit better in the Pac-12. Shane, I'm still not convinced he's a great quarterback by any means, but he is in this weekend for FSU.
So having said that, there's a ton of teams that have a new quarterback.
Yes, correct.
Pretty much almost all of them. Because Jackson Dart, I saw something yesterday. I was texting with some of my Ole Miss buddies. There's still a possibility he leaves, is what they were telling me.
Right.
Even though he said he's coming back.
Yeah. Well, look, in this day and age, even if we're not saying players are lying, but we're just saying a lot of things can happen in a short period of time that would make them look at leaving.
Radware is a family-owned business that prides itself in excellent customer service while providing quality and affordable promotional products and customized apparel. We're speaking with Brent Beaird on the Titan More Hotline, courtesy of Duffield Home Improvements from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. So Brent, let's kind of go around the league a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still early. Signing day is next Wednesday, the early signing period. Some teams have added players, some have not. Well, let's just start with Alabama. Alabama's they're busy trying to win a football game. But we expect them to have a pretty good class on Wednesday.
Oh yeah, no doubt. They will do very well. But part of the reason is Ryan Williams, who's a 5-star commitment out of Saraland, Alabama. They were in the state championship game. He is committed to Alabama. Again, he hadn't signed yet, so a lot of people are still looking at him. I'll just hit some real highlights on most of these teams that people may not have heard. Alabama's met with LT Overton from Texas A&M. Also, Anquan Barnes is in the portal. He's a defensive lineman. Also, obviously, Alabama plays Michigan on January the 1st, and we'll break that down a little bit more as we go along. Alabama's schedule, they go to Wisconsin. The big game with Georgia and Tuscaloosa on September the 28th. And they've got South Carolina on the schedule. They play Missouri, which is interesting. And they've got Oklahoma. Then they have Auburn. Now, let me mention a couple things about the schedule real quick. Number one, my understanding is, and I'm looking at my 24 calendar here, what we found out is Thanksgiving is the 28th next year. So that means your rivalry games would still be on Thanksgiving weekend. The season is starting the last Saturday in August. Now, there will be a week 0, and FSU plays Georgia Tech and Ireland. So keep that in mind. The other big thing, Shane, I wanted to ask you about, and I think this is crucial. Every team this year, and I hope they do this every year, has not one but 2 byes.
Yeah.
In other words, they're off 2 weekends during the season. Shane, I think as brutal as these schedules are, I think that's going to help these teams tremendously.
I do agree with that, but as a player, you absolutely hate bye weeks because there's nothing. I mean, and if you're banged up and stuff, but I just remember bye weeks because let's say you're playing good ball, and then you go to a bye week, or it's just as a player, you hate practicing for no reason, if that makes any sense. But yeah, the season is going to be much longer because everybody's got 2 byes, but I think you have to. With the teams you're going to play, you're going to get banged up for sure. Arkansas, obviously, Rocket Sanders. I don't know if it's confirmed that he's going to South Carolina. That was the last thing I heard. KJ Jefferson does not have a place to play football right now. They signed Boise State's quarterback Taylon Green. I know nothing about him.
Right.
I think KJ Jefferson may have made a mistake.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And again, there's been very little said about what he's going to do at this point, so we will keep that going. Yeah, Taylon Green, 3,700 yards, 25 touchdowns, 1,000 yards rushing the past 2 years. Arkansas State schedule real quick. They open at Oklahoma State. They've got UAB. A&M and Arlington again. They've got LSU, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Louisiana Tech, and Missouri. And again, remember, for our listeners, next year begins the year for the SEC. There are no divisions. So that's why a lot of these teams that used to play each other every year, they're not going to play each other every year anymore.
Yes. Also, we got the other thing too is I wonder if KJ Jefferson was pushed out because he does not fit what Bobby Petrino wants to do offensively.
Yeah.
So that would
That's
be
a good
interesting.
point. Yeah, it would be.
All right, Brent, the Gators. What can you tell us about the Gators?
Yeah, obviously, well, Harris has been hired as defensive backs coach. Couple of interesting notes here, and you may know more about this. Um, Jerry Odom was a head coach, former Gator player, expected to be hired as a D coordinator at Western Carolina, and also Pitt has named Western Carolina offensive coordinator Cade Bell as the Panthers' new offensive coordinator. I thought
Yep.
that was interesting. Do you know more about those two hires,
I
Shane?
do. I do. I talked to Kerwin and Jerry probably once a week. Jerry's not been officially hired, but he will be the new D coordinator. He did a tremendous job at Tusculum, but he'll
Yes,
make more money. He'll go back working with Kerwin.
right.
Cade is a football junkie. Loves recruiting. I've known
Yeah,
him since he's a kid. He's very good at what he does. However, I mean, I know a lot of Gator fans would have liked to hire him here, but we'd have two 30-year-old coordinators.
yeah,
He's
yeah,
only 30,
right.
but um, Pitt will be fun to watch.
Yeah, I
He
agree.
there's only three teams in America that average 300 yards passing, 200 yards rushing. Oregon, LSU, and Western Carolina.
Wow,
So,
that's a great note. It really is. And just a real quick on the Gators, they've had a visit from Joey Slackman from Penn, a defensive lineman. Um, obviously, the verbal from Brent Taylor, the JUCO edge. And there's a lot of talk about Derek Lagway meeting with A&M. He's going to have I believe it's an unofficial this weekend to Florida. Princely has visited Ole Miss this week. Also, Miguel Mitchell, I understand, plans on going to the portal. Also, and then we have also talked about the Gator schedule.
yeah. The Dogs, they're losing a bunch of people. They got like 15 or 16 in the portal. Obviously lost their backup quarterback to Kentucky. I mean, they got plenty of dudes, but I think a majority of their players want to play and haven't
Yeah,
seen the
they
field, so
do.
they're going in the transfer portal.
The biggest thing for Georgia is that they may lose Dylan Raiola, who is their outstanding quarterback prospect, like the 24/7 number 2 overall recruit to Nebraska. Now, you might say, why in the world would he go to Nebraska? Well, my understanding is his dad played for Nebraska, so there's a family tie there. So that's pretty surprising, frankly. Georgia schedule, Tennessee Tech at Kentucky's the second game. I thought that was interesting. Bama and Tuscaloosa, and then they go to Texas on October the 19th. They, I know this doesn't mean much, but it will be then because in Austin that same weekend they've got a big Formula One race in Austin, so that should be real crowded. November 2 is Florida, Georgia, Georgia, Florida, and then they end the season Ole Miss, Tennessee, UMass, and Georgia Tech. So that's your Georgia schedule.
Yeah, for sure. Right on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, wants to know what can you tell us about Willie Korn? Is he going to be the offensive coordinator at Florida?
Uh, I mean, I've heard a little bit about that. I'm not sure about that yet. Shane, jump in here with what you know. But at this point, it's just waiting.
Yeah, I mean it's rumors, and like I said, I know people want a new offense, which I understand. I understand,
Yeah.
but we got bigger fish to fry than worrying about
Mm-hmm.
our offense, in my opinion. I'm an offensive guy too. If I had my druthers, I want to address the really problematic issues on the team before I have to worry about an offensive coordinator. And if we do bring in another offensive coordinator, people are bitching about Billy, and Willie
Yeah.
Korn may be great. We don't know.
Yeah.
But Willie Korn has coached at Georgia Southern and Coastal Carolina and Liberty, I think. Or not
Mm-hmm.
Georgia Southern, Coastal Carolina and Liberty. So I don't know. We'll have to just wait and see. But I don't think offense is our problem right now. Ole Miss, we play the Rebels next year. Jackson Dart's still kind of up in the air. They have a big game. They'll sell out that game in Atlanta, the Peach Bowl. The Ole Miss fans will show up.
They will.
As you mentioned earlier, Princely is supposedly going to sign with them, but that's what Ole Miss does, man. They spend their money in the transfer portal.
They do. Chris Paul, the Arkansas transfer, has committed. They've also got a visit this week from Walter Nolan, the defensive lineman from Texas A&M. J.J. Pegues is supposed to be coming back, big defensive lineman. They've got a lot of the guys coming back. Trey Harris is supposed to be coming back. And as we mentioned, Jackson Dart, we think, is coming back. Interesting schedule for Ole Miss. They've got Oklahoma at home. They've got Georgia at home. They play at Florida on November 23rd, and the Egg Bowl is November the 30th. So interesting schedule. And as Shane said, they build their team a lot from the portal. And look, and they're going for 11 wins. They've never had 11 wins before. So it could be a historic season for the Rebels.
Yeah, for sure. We mentioned South Carolina earlier. I believe Rocket Sanders is officially committed there. They did lose their little big play receiver, Juice Wells. He's into the portal. I think he's going to end up at Ole Miss, right?
That's a possibility. And Mario Anderson is a running back. He is looking at Memphis, Oklahoma, and Southern Cal. That was a loss. Rocket Sanders helps them immensely. And they also got North Texas Oscar Attaway at running back too. So they just need some playmakers, and hopefully they'll be able to pick up some in the portal.
Yes, for sure. Text on the Titan More text line from Jimmy. We've already touched that one, Jimmy. My bad. We've already talked about that one. I don't want to just keep asking the same questions over and over. Gerard on YouTube says, any word on the Gators bringing in a code D coordinator, D-line coach who has experience? What about Charlie Strong? I'm sure they have to bring in a D-line coach. I don't know who it's going to be. I do not see Charlie Strong coming back here.
Yeah. You never know, but I would concur. I would concur with that. Yes.
Brent, are the folks in Jacksonville pretty happy with their matchup between Kentucky and Clemson for the Gator Bowl?
Yeah, I think so. I believe they think they will sell a lot of tickets. They certainly will with Clemson. And again, Clemson ended the year well. So there should be some excitement with them. So we will, and again, Kentucky had a decent season. I mean, Mark Stoops still continues to play well and coach well for them. So, I think at this point they probably are. That will be interesting. Devin Leary hoping to end on a good note with that. So we'll see how Brock Vandergriff does. Look, he's a heralded prospect. Vandergriff transferred from Georgia to Kentucky, but we just don't know how he will do because he just really hasn't played a lot during that time either. Shane, I also wanted to mention a couple things for Florida State, if I may. We mentioned DJ Uiagalelei coming in to make a visit this weekend. Rodney Hill is going to transfer, redshirt freshman running back with them. Also, DJ Lundy, a linebacker, is going to enter the portal. They've got an official visit coming from Cam Ward, who is a really good quarterback.
I hope he goes to it's between, I think he's down between Miami and Florida State. We need him not on our schedule.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. Now, Chris McClellan, the defensive tackle from Florida, I understand FSU has offered them, and so he is on their radar too. some of the other guys who have departed FSU, Blas Harris, the offensive lineman, A.J. Duffy, one of the backups at quarterback. So just a little bit about FSU I wanted to mention too.
Yes, for sure. You got any nuggets before we get you out of here, Brent?
I've got more nuggets than we've got time for today. Frankly, with all that's going on, yes, Cam Ward is supposed to is either had a visit or is supposed to have one at Miami. The quarterback from Washington State, who frankly is tremendous, to Tyler Van Dyke, as we know, has left Miami. Kobe Young, wide receiver at Miami, is going to enter the portal too. So he'll be going. And again, we've got bowl games this weekend, starting Friday night. We've got some of those. I know. I remember one thing I wanted to mention. You remember Bo Allen, who was supposed
Kentucky.
to be at Kentucky in a. You never know what guys are going to do, but and something I thought that was rather unusual is Bo Allen is actually going back to Kentucky. he was the Georgia Southern quarterback, and now he's actually going back to Kentucky. Shane, you don't see that very often, do you? That a guy leaves the team. Yeah, that's
Stetson
right.
Bennett did.
It actually comes back. So that's one that did. So that's fascinating to look at that.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Brent, good stuff as always, my man. We appreciate your time. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next week, the day after signing day.
Great. Can't wait, bud. Take care. Thanks.
That's Brent Beaird, our college football analyst and Heisman Trophy voter. Join us on the Titan MRO hotline. 1966 HBC beers available at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, Gator Games in the O-Dome, and select retail outlets. Crisp American Lager, 1966 HBC beer. Going to take a quick time out, come back, put a wrap on high school football with our high school specialist, Mike Ridaught. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back. We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Campus USA, put some star power to work in your financial life with Campus USA Credit Union. Dave & Buster's, eat, drink, play, watch. Duffield Home Improvements for your window, siding, and roofing needs. Radware, your local provider of promotional products, uniforms, and apparel. Our Gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Silverback Concrete, Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Radware, F45, Quality Plumbing. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Q Billiards and Sports Bar. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Pro football legend Emmitt Smith understands your joint pain.
It does not surprise me that there are a ton of people out there that's in pain.
That's why Emmitt is such a proponent of QC Kinetics, offering real lasting joint pain relief with non-surgical, all-natural biologic treatments.
Whether it's a joint pain, ankle pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, back pain, hip pain, any kind of pain, the body eventually will break down when it's under that much stress.
That stress can cloud your judgment to the point that you'll just say yes to the scalpel or yes to another prescription prescription of pain pills. But maybe it's time for a second opinion from QC Kinetics.
The reason why I would recommend this is because the natural biologics that QC Kinetics is providing you gives your body a chance to naturally heal itself.
Restorative, regenerative solutions are here. Get lasting relief and live your life.
Call QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550. That's 352-400-4550. QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Silverback Concrete's a family-led team of heavy concrete specialists that build commercial structure with unrivaled quality. Silverback Concrete, you stand on it, we stand by it. We're going to go to the Titan MR hotline now, courtesy of Duffield Home Improvements, and we're joined by the man that does a tremendous job covering high school athletics in our area from the Main Street Daily News and the PrepZone.com, our man Mike Ridaught. Good morning, Mike. How you doing, bud?
Hey, man, good. Just seems like things never slow down. We wrap up high school football last week, and lo and behold, football's been a hot topic this week.
Yeah. Before we jump into the mess at the FHSA let's just talk about what happened on the field. Obviously, let's start with Trinity Catholic. They lose a heartbreaker for the state title once again. Were you at that game?
No, I wasn't. I was only there for the Hawthorne game. But, you know, a great year for John Brantley. You know, in fact, they were the only 7-loss team in FHSA football series history to lose 7 games and make it to a state championship game. They played a brutal schedule. They were 3-7 and went to the playoffs and made a run all the way to the state championship game. They knocked off a team they lost to in the state championship game last year in the state semifinals to get there. And it comes down, it ends up being a close game. And, you know, again, John Brantley did a great job with his team, but Trinity Catholic comes up short in that state championship game. They lost to Sarasota Cardinal Mooney, but it was a close one, 31-27.
Yeah, it was in like the last minute or so, right? I think they kicked a field goal to go ahead, and then Cardinal Mooney drove down and scored, busted coverage, I believe. So really good year for the Celtics. Yeah, they played a difficult schedule. They have trouble finding people to play them. Another local team that had a heartbreaker, Bradford. The Tornadoes came up short against Cocoa.
Yeah, they did. You know, it was a historic season though for Bradford. They obviously played for a state title. It was the first time since 1985 that they had done that. They won a program record 14 games this year, but they got Cocoa again. They lost to them for the second straight year. Last year they lost to Cocoa in the state semifinals. Cocoa won their second straight state title with a 20-6 win against Bradford. The Tornadoes just kind of struggled a little bit offensively. We know that their defense, that's been their calling card this year, is their defense. They had only allowed 70 points in 14 games entering that state championship game. And although Cocoa scored 20 points, that's still the Tigers scoring average. They score about 40 points a game. It was just that offense kind of struggled a little bit. Bradford only had 189 yards total offense, gave up just 316, which is enough to win the game, but just didn't have enough offense to pull it off. But a great year for Bradford. Tell you what, Jamie Rogers has done an outstanding job in his 2 years there. State semifinal appearance, a state championship, as I mentioned, a program record, 14 wins. Really good year for the Bradford Tornadoes.
Yeah, for sure. Jamie's a heck of a high school football coach, no question about it. All right, and then in the small classification, Hawthorne goes back-to-back, beats Price Harris and the Madison County Cowboys. Tie ball game, I believe, at halftime, right?
You know, the thing about this game, Shane, is they were very fortunate to be tied because C.J. Ingram, the quarterback for Hawthorne, had only thrown 4 interceptions all year. He threw 3 interceptions in the first half. They had a punt block that ended up leading to a touchdown. After all of that, it was tied at 13 apiece going into the locker room. So Hawthorne, felt pretty good. The fact that they had made so many mistakes and they were still in the ball game, and I think that gave them enough confidence to go out in the second half. And while their offense did not score in the second half, the defense, they've had a tough defense this year. C.J. Ingram was 24-0 as a starter going into that game, so he's got one more year of high school ball. but they ended up taking advantage of really field position in the fourth quarter. There was no scoring in the third quarter. They got a safety. They got the football back. Then they put the ball in the hands of Keenan Johnson, their running back, who almost rushed for he was about 6 yards shy of 1,600 yards this year. He carried the ball 8 times on their final drive of the season, and they ate up almost 6 minutes of the clock. And they ended up getting recovering a fumble in the end zone for the difference. They won at 22-13. So congratulations to CI, Cornelius Ingram, and the Hornets win their second straight state championship. They undefeated again, Shane, back-to-back years they've gone undefeated. In fact, the last time they lost was to Madison County, who they just beat in the 2021 state championship game. So they've won 25 in a row now. What a run by the Hawthorne Hornets.
Yep. All right, we got a text here for you on the Titan Mark text line from Bobby. He says, Mike, what's worse now, the high school transfer portal or the college transfer portal?
Here's the concern. We've talked about transferring, when the legislation decided that they were going to allow athletes, their student athletes, to transfer, and we worried about that opening up some kind of Pandora box because, I think I mentioned it on this show. I said, watch, Shane, it's going to happen. One day we're going to have someone play high school football at one school. They're going to play basketball at another school, and they're going to play maybe baseball at another school in the same school year. And we've seen it happen in 2 sports. And I kept saying, watch, it's probably going to happen eventually in 3 sports. But what has happened is that this transfer portal in college is being normalized, and that is starting to trickle down to the high schools. I hate it because one of the reasons that I loved high school sports was the purity of it. And I just feel like it's starting to get watered down. Thank God the FHSA is not going to do anything right now with this NIL, because I think that would totally ruin high school sports. I know they're doing it in other states, but it's not what we want for high school sports. So that to me is the biggest thing, is the transfer portal. I think, again, you do what apparently other schools are doing, but not every school can do this. But just look at Hawthorne, for example, and I'm not trying to throw Hawthorne under the bus, but their leading receiver this year, Alvon Isaac, who is a USF commit, about to be a signee, he led the team in receiving. He's a transfer from the Villages. Andrew Zock, who had over 10 tackles, averaged over 10 tackles a game, transferred from North Marion. He's a Navy commit. Their leading leading receiver, Rollerson, Megatron, is a transfer from North Marion. So they did take advantage, if you want to call it the transfer portal, with these transfers. It was a big part, I think, of their state championship run.
Yeah, I mean, not just Hawthorne. Buchholz did the same thing. Bradford's done the same thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And I know you weren't picking on them. I'm just saying I don't think people.
Yeah, I'm not trying to throw Hawthorne under the bus.
The days.
Yeah, it probably feels that way.
Yeah, the days of growing up with the kids in your local community and playing at your high school are gone. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but I could have sworn, and I don't know if it happened this year, but let's just use Buchholz, for example, and say Gainesville High had a few good players. Once their season was over, couldn't they have transferred to Buchholz for the postseason if they had like 1 or 2 good players and play right then? Do you know the answer to that?
I think I don't know the exact answer to that, because I know there is some kind of a period where you do have to sit out. It's not a long period of time though. But I don't know if you could play that quickly. I think it's certainly possible, but I honestly don't know the answer. And Buchholz is another case in point. Miles Graham transferred in for his senior year. So again, it's not just happening at Hawthorne. It is happening at some of these other schools as well. So I don't know. Maybe it's become the norm. It's something we've got to get used to. I don't know how they get away with it. But it's happening, and I kind of see it getting worse. Gainesville High School, for example, one win this year, Shane. So
Mm.
why would you want to play at Gainesville High School when you can go play for a state championship at Hawthorne or Buchholz, as an example?
Yeah. Yeah. And a couple of their best players left to go to Williston, I think last year, 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, Mike, yesterday or
Yeah.
the last couple of days, the FHSA's kind of blown up the classifications again. Joseph has a question on here. I don't know how much you know about what's going on. He says, Mike, what's your thoughts on the new 1A rule classification? If I understand it correctly, there's no longer a 600 enrollment number, and the bottom 32 teams based off FTE will now make up 1A rule.
Yeah, that's what's happening. Today, I'm going to be reaching out to some of the coaches and athletic directors at the 1A level, because that means teams like Williston, Hawthorne, Newberry, they wouldn't be a part of that group. So they've moved to 8 classifications. The FHSA Board of Directors this past Tuesday held an emergency meeting. They voted to get rid of the suburban metro playoff system and go back to an 8 classification enrollment-based format. They also voted, and it was 9-4 vote both times. They also voted that you had to play your district games, which I like. I think it should be settled on the field. I don't know that I'm a proponent of the rankings when the FHSAA can't even really say how the rankings work. There's got to be a better system. I thought they were on a good track, going back 2 years ago when they implemented this suburban metro playoff system. I think it was a knee-jerk reaction. I think it was a little disorganized. I think it was rushed. Sorry, I can't remember the question that you asked. Back to the 1A or now the rural schools. So yeah, so if it's based on enrollment numbers alone, that's going to obviously affect some schools. But if you consider just 32 teams, you look at all the area teams just in this area that will be outside of that 32. So it's a mess. I don't know how it's going to work. Honestly, Shane, I've got more questions than answers. I can't wait until they finally come out with the districts, and then we can take a look at it again and or the classifications. But it's just a mess.
Yeah, there's no question.
And I think I think it has to do something, Shane, with South Florida. Honestly, I think that was the reason for the knee-jerk reaction. You had schools down in South Florida that were threatening to leave the FHSAA. And I think that's why they had, as I call it, a knee-jerk reaction. I was not a part of the meeting. I didn't watch it. I'm just basing my opinion on what I've read, what I've heard, people talking about it, et cetera. There's lots of things around the state, different coaches are saying different things. For example, Price Harris at Madison County, he said that all of the protocols that went through to pass the Metro Suburban proposal were totally ignored. There was no football advisory committee. There was no AD advisory committee. You also look at, in fact, there was a letter from the FACA, Shelton Cruz, who is the executive director of the FACA. They were not included, even though they represent about 6,000 coaches in the state of Florida. They were not even included in this. It came down to a board of directors meeting, and other coaches said, why not have football coaches, people that know football involved in this process? So again, big disappointment about the meeting. It was the way it was handled. I understand that they're trying to, the system was changed 2 years ago to achieve competitive balance. I kind of felt like we did have that. I saw us kind of moving in that direction. Did it need to be tweaked? Maybe. And then again, the bottom line, Shane, is at the end of the day, it is almost impossible to create a system that makes everyone happy.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with that. Because this newer system, how many private schools won state titles this year, Mike?
There was several. Let's see. Obviously, St. Thomas Aquinas, they set a state record with their 5th consecutive state championship.
Mm-hmm.
Berkeley Prep actually upset Miami New Orleans, so they won. Chaminade Madonna won a state championship. Cardinal Mooney. I can't remember if Cardinal Mooney. Yeah, I think they're a private school. Obviously, Trinity Catholic is a private school. So, it was at least half of the schools,
Right,
maybe
but
a little bit more off the top of my head.
I felt like it was more balanced though, that the public schools, and look, I know the public schools recruit nowadays too, with transfers and stuff, but it just seemed like, and I didn't follow that closely, but it seemed like it was more fair this year, if that makes any sense. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, but it's a mess.
Yeah, and the
And I don't
games
know
were
why the
in the
state of Florida
championship
is a
game.
mess.
Yeah,
What's that?
the championship games were close.
Yeah.
The championship games were close. You had a 4-point game in the 1S state championship. You had a 2-point game in the 3S state championship. You had a 1-score game in the 2M state championship. St. Thomas Aquinas won by 3. So we had good competitive games, even in the postseason leading up to the state championship. So I don't get it. I don't like it, but it is what it is, and I just think they rushed it, honestly.
Yeah. Well, Mike, good stuff as always, buddy. You moved on to basketball. Right now, they probably played 5 or 6 games, I would assume. And who looks the
Mm-hmm.
best so far?
Williston. They are the defending 1A state champions, and they have not lost a game yet. I think they've got a good chance to win another state championship. Right now, they're sitting at 8-0. Now they do have a tough game coming up against Wiregrass Ranch, which is also undefeated, and I think top 5 in the state, I think, in their classification. I believe they're in 6A. Actually, no, I take that back, Shane. They beat Wiregrass Ranch last night. That's right. So that was I think they're going to win a state championship. They've already beaten Gainesville this year. Maybe some of the bigger schools. Buchholz is actually off to a pretty good start right now. Elliot Harris is in his first year at Buchholz High School. They've got Eastside on Friday night. In fact, we'll have coverage of that when you can listen to it online at mainstreetdailynews.com. Buchholz will take on Eastside, but this Buchholz team is off to a 4-1 start right now. So we've got a handful of teams that should be pretty good. Hawthorne, because they made that long football state championship run, we have yet to really see Hawthorne yet, girls or boys. So I think both of those teams will be in the mix for a state championship this year. Should be a fun year. I know Williston will play Hawthorne at the Kingdom of the Sun in a couple of weeks, so that will be one heck of a game. Obviously, Hawthorne was in the Final Four last year, and as I mentioned, Williston defending state champion. We've got a lot of tournaments coming up, which I think will give us a good gauge, a good measuring stick to see where these basketball teams are at, not only playing against each other here in the area, but playing against competition around the state.
Yeah. Good stuff as always. Let everybody know how they can follow everything that you do.
I appreciate it, Shane. I'm the sports director for Main Street Daily News, so you can find a lot of stuff right there at mainstreetdailynews.com. Also at theprepzone.com, we rank the top 20 high school football teams across 26 counties. Our final regional rankings are coming out on Friday. You'll be able to find those at the Prep Zone.
Happy holidays, my man. Appreciate your time.
All right, you do the same. Thanks, Shane. Have a great day.
That's Mike Ridaught. Join us on the Titan Number Hotline, courtesy of Duffield Home Improvements. Rules-Over State Farm offers a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visit ogreinsurance.com, 352-240-1779. Don't forget Gators, East Carolina Pirates tonight on the SEC Network. This Day in Sports brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Put some star power to work in your financial life at Campus USA Credit Union. On this day, in 1996, the 62nd Heisman Trophy Award went to a guy named Danny Werfel, quarterback, University of Florida. I'm solely responsible for Danny Werfel being a Gator, just so y'all know that. I was his host on his visit. But that's brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Hope everybody enjoyed today's program. Again, I want to thank Mike Ridaught and Brent Beaird for joining us on the Titan Tomorrow Hotline. Have a great day, folks, and we will see you tomorrow. Take care.